Once Human. We saw the trailer. It looked kind of decent. Wasn't amazing, but wasn't bad. And now people are saying that it's pretty good. Let's see.
One of my most pleasant surprises late last year was Once Human, and the discovery that the game is actually shaping up to be interesting, content-rich, and decently fun, and I wasn't really expecting that when I first learned about it, because those early Once Human trailers really left much to be desired, and frankly did a pretty poor job of painting an accurate picture of what sort of a game it is. But after spending a ton of time with the December beta,
yeah, as you can see here, it looks kinda okay, but at the same time, nothing really that special, right?
to test, I came away fairly impressed. There's still some questions surrounding parts of its monetization, and I'm left with the same sort of uncertainty that I have with many free-to-play games, which won't be fully realized and sorted out until it officially launches. But as for the game itself, like playing Once Human, yeah, I really enjoyed it. At its core, it's an open-world MMO looter shooter that to me felt like a combination of games like The Division, Defiance, and Secret World with its sort of otherworldly elements, and with a little bit of survival and base building put on top of the whole thing. So on one hand, it's a full-on open world looter shooter, like I said, and that has everything you expect. You'll go around doing PvE stuff of fighting enemies and bosses, collecting
I wonder what exactly is the story here of this game, because I have no idea. I have not heard about it. I have not heard anyone speak. Like, what exactly is happening here? Is there some kind of magical corruption that's taking place over the world? Is it an ultimate dimension seeping in? Because, you know, the monsters and whatnot are pretty Cthulhu-esque.
Materials and loot as you gear and power yourself up. As you go around exploring, you'll move through this open world and stumble across all sorts of different points of interest and types of content. There are strongholds, which are like the primary form of PvE activity while you're leveling. These are various named locations all around the map.
This was the thing that I don't like about the game. As you can clearly see, there's levels, which is honestly fine. But then you can see every shot does damage. And well, I'm not gonna lie, considering this is probably the most baseline of baseline enemies that you can get, the fact that it's taking a whole clip to actually kill is probably my biggest red flag. Because when I see something like this, you know what it reminds me of? Starfield, obviously. And yeah, bullet sponge enemies, if done properly, is fine. Well, if the right enemies are bullet sponges, like, you know, giant tanks and whatnot, then it's fine. But when a basic enemy takes this many bullets to just kill, I have questions. I have real questions.
Map full of enemies to clear and objectives to complete. Some of them even have various puzzles and riddles to solve. There are world events like bosses that roam around, such as the spider bus. There's this King of the Hill style horde mode. Even these fog events where fog suddenly rolls in and you're given a timer and some objective, normally kill some enemies. There are dungeons called silos. You'll move through these, clearing rooms of enemies and fighting a boss at the end. And then monoliths, which are large instanced boss encounters separate from the dungeon bosses. These fights tend to have several phases and can be quite the challenge, especially being a gear check of sorts. And then all around the place, you'll see small camps of enemies. You'll find NPC towns filled with vendors. There are fast travel locations. There's also a bunch of different PvP activities in the game if you enjoy that, from points of interest that turn contested, letting you fight
Looks like a Fortnite map, if you ask me.
Other players for rewards, to entire servers that you can choose to play on where full PvP is enabled all of the time, and it's even got this base attack and defense mechanics.
Yeah, and from all the gameplay that we see so far, when we're talking about some kind of zombie-esque monster Cthulhu type of scenario setup for a game, I kind of want there to be hordes of enemies at times. But in a game like this, well, we haven't really seen too many hordes of enemies, have we? It's pretty much has been exclusively this. So that's kind of a little bit disappointing, because currently it doesn't look like the system balancing is at where it should be, in my opinion. Because, again, I don't like the idea of needing to spend 80 bullets on one pretty basic enemy. Not a fan. Not a fan.
Full PvP is enabled all of the time, and it's even got this base attack and defense mechanics. In addition to all of the other MMO and looter shooter stuff that we mentioned, the game has survival crafting as well. You'll go around scavenging for resources. You got a stamina, sanity, hydration, and hunger meters. There's base building, which has all the variety you expect, and those bases can be built pretty much anywhere in the game, with the exception of roads, and right next to points of interest, you're going to see player bases all over the place as you play. Lots of progression available.
Cool.
As well, besides leveling up, you've got the crafting of gear and mods, along with this blueprint system, your cradle and deviations, all of which provide additional perks and special powers. And that is just like the Cliff Notes version of what is in Once Human. There's a lot to this game, and as I said earlier, it far exceeded my expectations when I checked out the playtest in December that went into January.
But I want to say, if an enemy this big is a bullet sponge, that's fine, because you kind of expect that to be the case. But I like a good balance in games like this. I want there to be big enemies that actually take a lot of your attention, and I want there to be smaller enemies that you kind of mow down, spray and pray them almost, essentially. I don't know if this game is gonna hit that for me, but then again, it's a personal opinion, and maybe you don't care about it. Now, in either way, if it's good and the shooting is fun, well, maybe we will not care at all if it takes 3 clips to kill a basic enemy, and that's going to be absolutely fine. Who knows?
Especially in terms of like the amount of variety of content. I literally wasn't expecting it. Honestly, this is one of the games I'm most looking forward to releasing in 2024. Now, since the last playtest, there have been quite a few updates and announcements, so let's catch up to speed, see what's new, what's changing, and when you can play the game again, which, as it turns out, is going to be pretty soon. In late February, they revealed plans to host another public beta test. During this announcement, they intended for it to start in late March, but then just a few days ago, this actually got pushed back, and it will now begin on April the 3rd. So if you missed checking out the game the first time around, you're going to have another shot here, and you're going to have quite a long time to do so as well, as the April beta is planned to run for a full 42 days, ending in the middle of May. This test will include all of the same content, features, and areas from the previous one, along with a few new additions. The first of these details were revealed the week after. On February 27th, along with releasing a new gameplay video, they published a blog post teasing some of this new content. So these include some new monsters, some of which were showcased in the trailer, along with new boss encounters like this massive unit with a drill bit for a head, and replacing the heads of creatures with various inanimate objects is kind of a running theme in this game. You'll see creatures with televisions and lamps on their heads, even ones with radio towers on their heads.
Ah, that's a reference. I thought that previously, what did we see here that was a reference? The backpack obviously looks like a reference to Last Man Standing, the game where you're a courier and you run around all the time and you're the guy from Walking Dead. That one.
They also revealed this beta will include a new explorable area called the Eternal Land. They were pretty vague on details here, but they said it was like an instant zone that gives players the freedom to construct diverse buildings, territories, and puzzle solving. Initially, this sort of sounded to me like a creative mode where maybe base building wasn't restricted by resources or something, but at the time wasn't entirely sure. As I said, they were pretty vague on details. We did learn more later on, though. Also, they said that this test is going to include, as per feedback from the last beta, they will be having a brand new PvP season, and they're introducing new deviants. So these are the pets or companions in the game. They grant you additional perks and abilities. It's got this Tamagotchi mechanic as well, where you store them in a case and you have to do things to keep them happy, like maintaining a certain temperature range, playing certain types of music, or having specific lighting and decor in the nearby vicinity. Keeping them happy then generates points.
Sounds like an absolute chore, not gonna lie.
Which you can spend to get certain rewards and unlocks, including the resource to make these special limited power potions. Like there's the wings potion that lets you glide around the map. There's spring legs that let you jump higher. High voltage has you dealing electric damage with melee attacks whenever it's storming. And then there's the chrysalis elixir, which grants a shield whenever you're critically injured, and much, much more. Pretty cool system here. This whole deviant thing and the Tamagotchi keeping it happy, and then all the extra stuff that you get from your deviants. Also in this update,
how many people don't even know what a Tamagotchi is nowadays? My guess, a lot. Very, very many.
They did mention that after garnering a lot of attention from the last beta, the game climbed its way all the way to the #2 most wish-listed spot on Steam. Although I did just check and it's dropped down quite a few positions. It's still pretty high up, all things considered. So after this, we got some more detailed plans for their next season. On March the 5th, they released an update giving us an in-depth look at their plans for how seasons are going to work, what they are like, as well as some information about this new...
So essentially, it's a microtransaction-filled live service game. This is a potential that it has. Well, let's see how it plays out. If it's a good game, the microtransaction and the live service aspect honestly just kind of makes it better in my opinion. Hey, a good live service game is pretty good. New content constantly, having fun, all of that stuff, it's nice.
Zone Eternal Land. So for the seasonal stuff, it sort of functions like you expect. It's going to be regular resets of content where you start fresh, making a new character, and checking out the new stuff that is in a particular season with various seasonal goals to chase after. So here's what they specifically said. In Once Human, every season introduces a fresh journey where you start anew and experience exclusive seasonal content within a fixed time frame. The content will vary from season to season, presenting new stories, events, and mechanics. Each season brings forth a unique set of objectives, whether it involves resisting the invasion of an otherworldly entities or seizing control of the core region. In the pursuit of these goals, you will explore different maps, experiment with various gear and character builds, and encounter new enemies. They then state that you're going to have the freedom to pick from a variety of season scenarios and decide how you want to
The Prime War, Call of Evolution, Realms of Rivalry, Explorer's Odyssey. All of this kind of sounds cool, honestly, in my opinion. The Prime War sounds the coolest, I think, and Evolution is the second coolest. So, it's gonna be interesting. You know what's cool about games like this? Maybe they're gonna do it because, you know, at the start, all of the monsters are kind of just monster-esque, but after that, they kind of become bosses. So, Evolution is kind of a pretty decent hint there, in my opinion. It could hint on what's happening here, and I really love stories of games like this. Honestly, if they're done right, what happened, why it's happening, blah blah blah. I think having a story in a game is really good. You know, you can make just a good game, but if it doesn't have a story, then you kind of have no meaning in why you're doing some things sometimes. So a game must have a story, in my opinion, to be really, really successful. I think even Fortnite has a story. Maybe I'm wrong. Who honestly knows at this point? Never played Fortnite. It is what it is. But if this game had a pretty cool story, even better.
Progress through them. Sort of like what we see in most ARPGs that launch nowadays, it appears like Once Human will be releasing with seasonal content at the forefront. This is a seasonal based game where you are constantly starting things over. Sort of. There will be a non-seasonal section of the game. Turns out that's actually what Eternal Land is. But of course, what's interesting and of note here is that this isn't a hack and slash ARPG. It's an open world MMO looter shooter, and those don't normally have a seasonal focus, at least not to this extent. So they went on to explain their goal and exactly how this whole thing's going to function. They said, Once Human strives to bring you a fair, balanced, and stress-free gaming experience. That is why seasons are introduced. With seasons, you have the freedom to enjoy the content of your choice and dive into the game at your own pace. So at first I was confused here. I don't know what this has to do with seasons in particular, as you can have a fair and balanced and stress-free gaming experience in a non-seasonal MMO. Unless, of course, what they're talking about, and this is what I presume, they're probably talking about player power getting out of control eventually on the Eternal version of the game, whether that relates to how that might pertain to the cash shop, or even just people playing the game and grinding like crazy until they get to super high power levels, in which case, yes, seasons let them reset that power and put everyone back on an even footing. Kind of part of the whole point.
There are some people that don't like seasons and the idea that it restarts your character and whatnot. I like seasons. I always liked seasons. Seasons are good. If you don't like seasons, hey, there's typically some kind of ethereal realm, but hey, don't be surprised if you say seasons are bad and then you play the ethereal realm and you're like, this is kind of boring. Yeah, that's what seasons are supposed to do. Half of the fun in a lot of games is the progression in making your build. Even in a game like this, by the way, it seems like build progression is going to be a huge thing. So, seasons just kind of help with that. If the game is good and the seasons allow you to make a new builds and things are added and whatnot, that's great. I am all for seasons. I like them.
Besides like regularly introducing new content, having a fresh restart for everybody is kind of part of the whole appeal to seasonal structure. They then go on to say that the seasonal possessions and achievements will carry over, things like weapon blueprints, the bases you build, and the materials you farm. So they say at the end of each season, your character and their progress will be transferred to the Eternal Land, which is currently under development, and from there you have the freedom to choose what you want to bring with you when you begin the next season in accordance with the rules for that particular season. And that actually sounds pretty
Ooh, that's interesting. No one does seasons like that. This is the first time I hear anyone try to do it like that. Now, obviously, yeah, if you reset a game, sometimes it allows you to. But that's like a roguelite thing. I haven't seen it in games like this. Very interesting. Well, it's more like an extraction shooter in that sense, I guess. But it's kind of interesting. Nice. If you farm a lot, so all your progress is not to full waste, which again, I don't think is a huge problem because, hey, if you farmed a lot, you enjoyed it a lot. So, there's no harm in that.
Darn neat. With each season comes different rule sets for what you can start with. So just spitballing some ideas here, maybe they have a season where you can bring anything that you can fit in your character inventory with you.
Oh yeah, this is definitely Death Stranding.
And then you start with that. Or maybe in another season, you can only bring the gear that you're wearing on your character. Or maybe there's a season where your base carries over and you can place it down in the world, but none of your material storage comes. There's a lot of potential with things that they could do here based on the rule sets that they put in place for each of these seasons and what they let people bring over from the Eternal Realm. And yeah, this could be pretty neat, although I do have to point out it kind of goes against the aforementioned fresh and fair restarts if they're letting people carry any significant portion of their Eternal stuff with them into the new seasons. But that said,
yeah, that's true, but well, it's probably a work in progress, so
I don't know, this is an interesting take on seasons. I like trying new things, and it just sounds like I haven't played a seasonal game that has this sort of structure to it. So they then state as well that when the season ends, you are given a choice, and that choice is to either replay the same season you just did with its particular rule sets and theme and content, or to sign up for a different season. So it appears maybe it's not going to actually be quarterly, but much more consistent and ongoing, repeating constantly with new.
Oh yeah, I understood. I kind of thought that maybe that's what they meant, but at the start of the video, Forge did explain that, and it did seem like that thing that in the ethereal realm you can choose what season you play. So, for example, if you start the game at, like, I don't know, Season 5, you can just go and play Season 1, 2, 3, or 4 if you want to. You're not necessarily forced into the newest season. So, that was kind of an interesting thing. So, kind of backwards compatibility to a certain degree. I like that. That's a pretty decent idea.
Servers being spun up, you finish the season and you can go straight into another one, or you can repeat the season that you just did. They then reiterate that in every season, everyone starts on an equal footing, which isn't, I guess, really true if you're letting you carry things over, but whatever, which gives new players a chance to catch up while offering veterans a fresh challenge. This means the game will be more inclusive, enabling friends to play together even if they join the game at different times. They then go into more details about some of the specific seasonal mechanics and the different aspects to a season. So first, there are what are called season stages. They say in Once Human, a season is subdivided into different stages, each offering unique gameplay features and challenges. By completing stage tasks together, players can earn generous rewards. As the season progresses, more regions and gameplay content will be unlocked, allowing players to access to the full storyline and culminating in a final battle that will envelop the entire game world. Players.
Okay, that sounds really cool and good. Man, currently I kind of like all of these systems that they are talking about. I don't see them bad or anything. Okay, I'm kind of getting really excited now. Huh.
Are merging from that fray will then enter the season's settlement phase. During the settlement phase, players are free to continue exploring the open world, completing any remaining season challenges, exploring strongholds, hunting for riddle spots across the map, or simply sitting back and relaxing with their friends. Then, when they are ready, players can choose to sign up for a new season.
Oh, look at that. They jumped. That's pretty cool.
They are ready.
See that?
Players
Boom.
Can choose to sign up for a new season and embark upon their next journey. So this is really interesting. They're dividing the season into these sections, and it's like a progression, right? You begin at the start of the season. It'll have its theme.
I also like that, by the way. I kind of like it. Well, unless they do it like World of Warcraft, where it's shit. You know, where nothing you do in the previous part matters. But I kind of like stuff like this. I really do. I'm a fan if you actually do it like that, when you spread out the content, you know. And also, because the reality is, okay, we're gamers, right? What do? We go into a game. What do? Do we go step by step? No, we try to push it to the max. And this is kind of a neat little thing to get to give people more stuff to do, more things to play, because you can't just, you know, be a freshly made character that instantaneously tries to push for the very top. You're gonna do it in, you know, slowly over time. It's like a road or something. Now you get what I'm saying, right? Saying road made me feel stupid, but it is what it is.
It'll have whatever unique content, story stuff, areas, whatever, its goals. And then as people on that seasonal server play, they will complete those goals, unlocking new areas, new content, new things to do, new boss fights. This then continues, culminating in some sort of big final battle, whether it's a boss battle or some sort of horde mode event or whatever it is. And then after that battle, the season goes into that chill mode that they call settlement phase, letting you do what you want. If you want to wrap up some season goals or whatever, complete some things that you didn't get around to before the end of the season. And then I guess once a season is in settlement phase, it's your choice to restart that season on another version of that seasonal server, or to move on to another brand new season. Now, there may very well be other games that have a structured seasonal content like this, but this is the first time I've ever experienced something like this. This all sounds pretty neat to me. Now, next they talk about content inheritance, and this is basically the stuff that carries over from one season to the Eternal Realm into the other season. So here they say, after completing a season, you can bring the resources and blueprints you accumulated with you when you sign up to a new season. In-game tokens, weapons and gear blueprints, mods, skins.
Yeah, but now knowing more about this, I don't think this carryover thing is gonna work, though. Yeah, it feels like that's something that's not gonna be exactly on point.
Building blueprints, titles, in-game friends, etc. Those will all be inherited directly. Other more basic inventory resources, such as materials, components, medicines, ammo, and gear, will be transferred to the Eternal Land Depot. Before the next season begins, players can decide which resources they want to bring with them as they embark upon their next new journey. So how I am reading this section, it seems to me like you will be starting a season with all of your blueprint stuff, like all of the things that you have researched, the weapon and gear blueprints, the mods, the skins, the building blueprints, the titles, your friends, all of that. It sounds like all of that stuff carries with you into the seasons, but then the specific materials used for the crafting, the various components for things, the medicines, the ammo, and the actual gear, you keep your blueprints, but the gear itself that has to be crafted, that doesn't carry over, that stays in the Eternal Land, and then you have to...
Okay, this part could be good, it could be honestly bad. It all depends on how powerful these blueprints are. Is that the full game, or, you know, what? Because if blueprints matter, and you no longer need to find blueprints from, like, you know, certain mobs, certain bosses and whatnot, that's kind of taking away content from people to a certain degree. Because it kind of allows them to skip a portion of the content. And when you're skipping portions of content in the game, why is that content even there if you are... Okay, so the basic idea why skipping content is bad in games is very simple. If you're allowing people to skip a certain portion of the content, doesn't that inherently mean that the content is bad? Or should be reworked or something? Because that's exactly how it sounds like, in my opinion. Otherwise, why would you ever let anyone skip a portion of your content if it's not bad? So, you know, and if it is not bad, then why are you allowing people to skip? You should want to make people play it. So this is kind of a little bit sus. This is kind of a little bit strange. Currently, the only thing that pops to mind is how other games have balanced stuff like recipes staying decently, is by the idea that recipes are really, 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 really hard to acquire. and that's the reason why they stay. Because whenever you get a recipe, it's like, oh my god, I got a recipe. It's for what? Complete shit 20 levels ago, but I still got it. It's amazing because it's so rare. That's the only thing that currently kind of pops to mind, but again, just speculation.
Decide what you take with you into the next season. So presumably, it's basically whatever you can fit on your character with your basic inventory, not the storage space, whatever, but the actual character inventory, the stuff that fits in your backpack more or less, which is gated by things like a weight limit and capacity and all that. Again, this is a little conflicting with what was mentioned earlier, but it sounds like there might be some variations where certain seasons don't let you take the materials and components and medicines, but only ammo and gear that you can wear or whatever. Interested to see how they actually structure this. They provide a little more detail about the specifics of Eternal Land as well. They say, Eternal Land is a player's permanent personal mini world and serves as a stopover for players transferring to a new season. So this isn't an eternal realm as much as it is a player eternal location. There isn't one realm where everyone's eternal with all their characters, but every player has their own eternal land. This is a place where items can be permanently stored, resources accumulated when playing through the storyline, rare collectibles gathered in different worlds, or unique building structures, all can be stored safely. In Eternal Land, buildings no longer have any upper limits or range restrictions. Players are free to let their imaginations run wild and create dazzling building structures unfettered by the normal gameplay restrictions.
Kinda cool.
Players can also customize the gameplay rules and invite their friends to step
Mother of life, huh?
into their Eternal Land and experience their creations firsthand. So yeah, it almost kind of sounds like instance player housing, but a little more fleshed out, as there's going to be some land aspect to it and not just your personal home, which was kind of what I initially guessed when I heard Eternal Land, that it was some sort of creative mode. It's kind of like that, but it's also a home base and a storage place for your stuff that you will ferry with you in between the different seasons. In terms of the seasonal themes, they haven't revealed a lot, but they did say that the only scenario players have been able to experience so far for seasons was the Prime War, and that was the one that was running during the last beta test. And the development team has been working hard on a range of new season scenarios. They then gave some examples. Currently in development include the Silver Gate season, a PvP scenario accessed by Stronghold Conquest, and also a
Silver Gate season, huh?
Faction confrontation scenario where players can choose an NPC faction and step into the snowy and volcanic areas to the north. So we're going to be getting new content areas. We're going to be getting new types of features where we're choosing a faction to fight for, probably a reputation system with that, new boss fights and stuff like that, I presume, new quests, new areas. Obviously, we already said that. PvP focused scenarios or seasons that you can choose if you want to be a PvP player. Yeah.
PvP is probably gonna suck in a game like this because it is a looter shooter, you know? I don't know. Seems sucky.
I mean, this sounds pretty cool. Like I said earlier, I've played many games that have a seasonal structure. Not used to it in an MMO open world looter shooter, and also not used to how they are structuring this here. And on top of everything else that I've enjoyed about the game in terms of it, just the depth of content, the amount of stuff there was to do and see, it just felt really fleshed out for a game that's still in testing for an MMO looter shooter that I had very little expectations of when I first saw and learned about it. Like I said earlier, it took me by it was a very, very pleasant surprise. Really enjoyed my time, and all of this stuff really just adds to my interest and excitement for the game going forward, because this...
Yeah, it kind of looks exciting, kind of looks good. Cannot complain, I think. Anyway, that was Fortis Gaming, 10 out of 10. This was Quizzer Sensei. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.